So I've spent approximately the last week or so wandering around Norway with a camera. No studio, no real lighting setup, no real deadlines, no reels to entirely film. But that has to be an Ola load of bollocks. Because at one point I literally caught myself doing something that made me stop dead in my tracks. I found myself looking at this beautiful scene. I was looking over Vigeland Park, and my first thought wasn't, wow, what an incredible thing to photograph. It was like, oh my God, this would make a great reel. And honestly, I was like, who am I? What have I turned into? And it's not because there's something wrong with making content. I make content. You're listening to content right now. My business has grown because of said content. My books have sold because of content. People have found me because of content. And it is not the enemy. But I have started asking myself a question. At what point did photography stop being enough? At what point did taking the photograph become only half the job? Because now you don't just take the photo, you film yourself taking the photo, you film yourself walking to the location, you film yourself setting up the tripod, you film yourself changing lens, you film yourself reviewing the image, you film yourself reacting to the image, you film the BTS, you edit the photo, you edit a reel to show the edit of the photo of the shoot. And somewhere in all of that, you've actually forgot to enjoy making the bloody photograph. And that's what I want to talk about today, because I think photography is slowly, maybe a little bit speedier now, becoming performance art. And before anyone starts hammering in the comment, I'm not saying social media is evil, it is not the plague, it is not awful. I'm not saying influencers are ruining photography. I'm not saying don't make content. I'm saying something a bit more uncomfortable. I think we've quietly become actors in our own photography careers. We are no longer just photographers. We're presenters, we're marketers, we're videographers, we're editors, we're personal brands, community managers, entertainers, algorithm analysts, and somewhere down that list, photographer has slipped further and further down. I don't know what number it's on my list now, but it's crazy. You know what's fascinating? Think about photography maybe 20 odd, 30 odd years ago. People like Steve McCurry, Anna Leibovitz, um, they knew the work. They're not necessarily like people knew their work. They didn't necessarily know the people, but they knew the work. Today, people know the person, but couldn't tell an image they've probably made. I want you to read that back. They as a brand has become more recognizable than their photographs. And that is a massive cultural shift. Photography used to create the frame and the fame. Now fame creates the photography. And those are not the same thing. And I see this all the time. Someone uploads a genuinely perfectly beautiful image. It gets maybe 400 likes. The next day they upload themselves pointing dramatically at a camera with a caption. Three mistakes photographers make, 3,000 views, 30,000 views, same photographer, different product, because social media doesn't reward photography, and we've known that for a while. It rewards attention. Photography is just one way of getting it. And there's a really important distinction. Instagram doesn't care if your image took 6 hours. TikTok doesn't care if you nailed a decisive moment. The algorithm doesn't know about composition really. It doesn't understand storytelling, it doesn't appreciate patience. It measures one thing. Did people stop scrolling? That's it. It doesn't know whether you created art. It only knows that you interrupted someone's boredom. And that has started to change us slowly and quietly, even without most of us noticing. Because now we approach photography backwards. We don't ask, what do I want to create? We tend to ask, what will perform? Different question, massively different. I caught myself doing it. And I bet you have too, standing somewhere beautiful, instead of looking, you're already thinking, oh my God, the caption. Maybe you're thinking about the thumbnail. Maybe you're thinking this looked great on Instagram. You've stopped observing, you started producing. And it's not photography, it's like broadcasting. So here's where it gets a little uncomfortable, because I don't think photography is actually the thing we sell anymore. I think we're selling ourselves. Think about it, 2 photographers, exactly the same technical ability, exactly the same prices in the same city. One gets fully booked and one struggles. Why? Often visibility, trust, familiarity. People don't buy photographs anymore. They buy people, and they're not necessarily wrong. In fact, it's probably a smart business, but it changes everything. It means that suddenly your personality becomes part of the product. Your opinion becomes part of your product. Your lifestyle becomes part of it. Your holidays becomes part of it. Your coffee choice becomes part of it. Even your dog, your breakfast, your gym session, your behind the scenes becomes part of the product. Everything becomes content. And when everything becomes content, nothing is just living anymore. And that's exhausting, not just physically, mentally, because you're never really off then. You're constantly asking, should I film this? Should I post this? Will this make good content? Have I posted enough this week? The algorithm's gone quiet. I better do another reel. Oh, I'm worried about the algorithm. Oh my God, I'm not getting enough views on my work. At what point did photographers become full time television presenters? Because honestly, that's what it feels like sometimes. And before we go any further, I want you to remember something. This isn't me sitting on some moral high ground. I make YouTube videos. I have a podcast. I've written books. I post on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Instagram. I am very much part of that machine. I have absolutely benefited from it. I've played the game. I even mentor people in how to play the game. The difference is I try really hard to remember which bit is the game and which bit is photography, because if we're not careful, those two things become the same. And I don't think they should. Okay. Now, I want to talk about the elephant in the room, influencers, because I can already hear keyboards warming up to send me some comments. Because whenever photographs hear the word influencer, the conversation usually goes one of two ways. Either they're ruining the industry, or oh my God, they're amazing. I don't think either is true. No, that's not right. They are amazing. I don't think the former is true. I think both sides are missing what's actually happening, because it's not really about influencers. It's about the attention they bring. Attention has become currency, not photography. Attention. Photography just happens to be one of the ways people earn it. Now, before anyone gets defensive, let's be really clear about something. There are photographers with huge followings who are absolutely exceptional. Some of the hardest working, most creative people I know have built audiences because they consistently produce incredible work, educate graciously and generously, and show up day after day. Good on them, they've earned it. But there are also photographers whose greatest talent isn't photography, it's gaining attention. And they are very different skills. So imagine two photographers. Photographer A has spent years mastering light, understand color, emotion, composition, storytelling, and every frame has intent. They've shot weddings in torrential rain, portraits in blistering wind, commercial shoots with impossible deadlines, and they are technically brilliant. And then you get photographer B. They're all right. They're not terrible. There's nothing wrong with their work. It's average. It's not groundbreaking. It's nothing that'll stop you scroll. It doesn't make you stop scrolling because the image is extraordinary. But photographer B has 300,000 followers, brand deals, free cameras, invites to exclusive launches, speaking opportunities, people queue to meet them. Why? Because they have mastered visibility, not necessarily photography. And that's where photography gets it wrong. They look at B and say they don't deserve it. Maybe, maybe not. But here's something that's a little uncomfortable. Did the camera company hire them because they're the best photographer, or because they can put that camera in front of 300,000 people? They are completely different objectives. One is an artist, one is a marketing channel. And if you're a business, which one makes more commercial sense to you? You might not like the answer, but it certainly explains a lot. I think one of the biggest misunderstandings in our industry is photographers keep assuming brands are running talent competitions. They are not. They are running marketing campaigns, and those are not the same thing. When a brand lends someone a camera, they don't necessarily say you're the greatest photographer. They are sometimes saying you have the biggest microphone. And that's okay, because that's marketing and their job is to make money. The problem starts when photographers confuse influence with expertise. I've seen people with massive followers teaching lighting who barely understand light. I've seen people teaching poses whose portfolio is only 6 months old. I've seen people selling mentoring before they've even actually built a business. In fact, I mentored somebody from very start in their career who 2 weeks into our mentoring program set up their own mentoring to teach pretty much what I was teaching straight back. And this person had quite a following in the creative industry, and then decided, and I was like, oh, you're just regurgitating what I've said to them. Okay, cool. Okay, that, goes against our contract, but it was interesting. Does that automatically make them frauds? I wouldn't say no, not necessarily, but it does raise an important question. At what point did confidence become more valuable than competence? And social media loves a confident person. It loves certainty, rewards bold opinions. It rewards people who speak as though they are unquestionably right. Nuance dies online because nuance doesn't go viral. Think about it. No one shares a reel that says, well, it depends. They share one that says you're editing completely wrong, or every photographer must own this lens, or this one mistake costs you thousands. Everything has to be absolute. It has to be dramatic. Everything has to be bigger than it really is, because certainty gets attention, and attention pays. Now, I'm guilty of this myself. I'm not making things up, but knowing that if I phrase something a bit more directly, more bluntly, more confidently, more people will likely click. That's the game. We're all playing it to some extent. The danger comes when you stop asking yourself, is this true? And start asking, will this perform? And that is a slippery slope. So let's flip it around for a second, because I don't think photographers are entirely innocent either. We complain about influencer culture while feeding it every day. We say, I hate clickbait, but we click it. We say, I hate, oh, sorry. In fact, we say, let me be careful. Okay. We say, I wish people appreciate real photography. And then we spend 20 minutes watching someone's morning routine instead of photography. The algorithm doesn't invent behavior, it reflects it. We're teaching platforms what we want. Every click, every share, every watch, every comment, we're voting. So maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't that influence exists. The problem is that the attention has become more entertaining than the photography they create. And then there's the pressure, the constant pressure. Because once you've become a photographer of an audience, you can't just make photographs anymore. You have to document yourself making those photographs. If you go out shooting for 6 hours, someone will inevitably ask, "Where's the vlog or the BTS? Why didn't you film it?" Imagine saying that to a painter. "Oh, where's the footage of you painting?" No one expects a novelist to film every paragraph they write or ask a sculpture why they didn't make a reel while chiseling the marble away. And yet, photographers, apparently, the photograph isn't enough anymore. You need proof that you made it. Now, here's something I've been thinking about while I was walking around Norway. One of my favorite moments, some of my favorite moments have been photographed, not because I forgot, but because I chose not to. I want to experience them, not package them, not optimize them, not think about a caption, not wonder if it make a good thumbnail. I just like to be there. And honestly, it felt strangely rebellious. Imagine that in 2026, experiencing something without actually putting your camera to your face made you feel kind of like a rock and roller. In fact, one of the ones I love was watching just like people just enjoying Norway. So if you weren't aware, I was out when Norway were playing um in the World Cup, and it was just before they went into the quarterfinal, and it was against Brazil. And I went down to the dock, the anchor, which is the harbour, and you might have seen the scenes. It was absolutely a wash of people. I had my camera in my bag, and I was gonna take photos, and I knew they'd go viral online because it always has. But I decided not to. I wanted to enjoy the moment. And people might laugh at me about it, but do you know what? I didn't need to. I took one quick video when the goal was disallowed. And then I went, do you know what? I feel like an idiot. I want to enjoy this. And there was a lot of people recording, but I just didn't want to be one of them. And I absolutely had a great time. Yes, oh, there's no footage of you there. I don't care. I know I was there. I had a good time. I don't care. I think what worries me the most, though, is not influencer culture, not content creation, not social media, and not I mean, it's not like those things are inherently bad. What worries me is that we forget why we picked up a camera in the first place. Most of us didn't start because we wanted to become personal brands. We started because we love seeing the world differently. We noticed art, we noticed light, expression, stories, the tiny moments that everyone else walking past. That camera was our excuse to slow down. And now it feels like it's become another reason to sort of speed up. Okay. Um, I I mean, we talk about the photographer becoming the product. We talked about the influence. We talked about attention becoming currency. But now I want to talk about something that I think is happening underneath all this. Something I would probably call photography theatre. And before anyone gets upset, it's not an insult. Theatre is not automatically fake. It's storytelling, it's performance, it's creating an experience. But the interesting thing about theatre is the audience knows they're watching a performance. The problems with photography theatre sometimes is we forget where the performance ends and reality begins. Because photography has always had an element of performance. Let's not pretend it hasn't. A fashion shoot is a performance. A wedding photographer directing a couple is performance. Creating a mood in a portrait session is a performance. We have always manipulated reality to tell a story. That's literally what I think photography is. The photographer never truly objective. You pick up a camera, you make choices, what to include, what to exclude, where to stand, what moment to capture, what story to tell. It isn't just about. It's not. It's not. This isn't about saying photography should be completely raw. It never has been. The question is, are we creating images or are we creating the appearance of creating images? I think this is getting very deep, and I'm sure you're like, Candy, what have you done? Listen, I came back from Norway and my grey matter was refreshed and I was in my deep moments and in my feels. Okay, so we're in my feels. So this is where things start to get interesting because sometimes the behind the scenes content becomes more valuable than the actual photograph. The final image might get a few hundred likes, but the video of you getting the image, a few thousand. The dramatic walk to location, the slow motion camera bag opening, the lens change, the intense facial expression while looking at the back of the camera, the little nod of happiness. You know that nod, the photographer nod, oh yeah, that's the shot. Or in my case, I make a weird noise. My assistants will testify to that. I go, yeah, I can't help it. I know you've seen it. We've all seen it. The photographer stands there, camera in hand, looks at him, slowly removes the camera from their eye, looks into the distance, maybe a little smile, a little head shake, looking like they've just discovered fire. And look, I'm not saying people can't get genuinely excited about their photographs. I am one of them because people do it. I do it myself. You nail that image, you get that little buzz, the feeling of, oh my God, I got exactly what I did. But when every single moment has performed for an audience, it kind of changes the sincerity of it. Suddenly you're not having an experience, you're creating the evidence of that experience, and there's a difference. Here's an example. You go on holiday, you see the most incredible sunset. Option one, you stand there, watch it, and feel something and remember it forever. Option two, you immediately get your phone out, film the sunset, film yourself watching the sunset, edit the sunset, caption the sunset, post the sunset, and you check who liked the sunset. You then check how the sunset performed. And suddenly the sunset wasn't really a moment. The content about the sunset was the moment. and all you did was watch it through a little screen instead of enjoying it visually in front of you. And photographers are especially vulnerable to this because we are already trained to be observers. We're always looking, we're already hunting, we're already searching for stories, and that's a beautiful thing. But social media added another layer, and now we don't just observe the world, we observe the world through the lens of could this make content? I was thinking about this while shooting street photography here in Norway. Street photography is one of the best examples of this because street photography requires presence. You have to be awake, you have to notice, you have to wait, be patient, you have to be comfortable with uncertainty, and you can't control the scene. You can't control the person walking into the frame or the weather or the moment. And that's what makes it so valuable because it forces you to stop performing. But now even street photography has become content. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong because I literally document myself and document the process can be brilliant. It teaches other people. Sharing your journey is brilliant, but there's a weird pressure now that people feel like they need to prove every photograph. That photograph isn't allowed to simply exist. It needs a story, a hook, a lesson, a reaction, a reason why you should care. And sometimes a photograph is just a photograph, okay? Babes, it's just a photograph. I liked it. I bangs it out. Check it out. You don't need a video of me walking to it, do you? And like, oh, setting myself up. You know, the story behind this image, it doesn't need to have anything with it. Sometimes it doesn't need it. It doesn't need a caption that says, "Oh, I almost didn't take the shot." It doesn't need, "Oh, 5 lessons I learned from photographing this." Sometimes it's just, I saw something banging and I pressed the shutter because that should still be enough. But the reason this is happening is because the internet has changed how we value things. We don't just value the thing anymore. We value the attention around the thing. Think about restaurants. They aren't just selling food anymore. They're selling the experience, the atmosphere, the Instagrammable moment, the story, the presentation. Photography is no different. The journey is part of the product. And the journey to the image, that's content. Okay? And this has created a strange situation where some photographers are spending more time creating proof that they're photographers than actually photographing. And I think this is where we need to be careful because there is a danger in sounding like we're above this because we're not. We all do it. I do it. I know I do it. And you probably do it. You take a photograph and immediately think, where can I use this? Website, Instagram, newsletter, YouTube, I don't know, podcast, marketing. And as business owners, we have to. This isn't a hobby for everyone. Some of us are trying to pay mortgages, feed families, build careers, and content is part of a modern day business. The answer isn't to reject it, the answer is to control it because there's a massive difference between I create content because I have something valuable to share and I create content I'm scared people will forget I exist. There are two different places to create from. And I think a lot of photographers are stuck in the I'm worried people forget I exist area. They're exhausted, they're constantly posting, comparing, and watching what everyone else is doing. They accidentally have turned some photography into a popularity contest. Who has the best camera, the biggest studio, who's got the most followers, who are invited to the launch, who gets the free gear, who gets featured, who looks busy, who looks successful. And somewhere along the line, we have stopped asking the most important question: are we actually making better photographs? Because the truth is, a mediocre photograph with excellent marketing will often be an incredible photograph with simple marketing. And that's a reality. A photographer only learns marketing and never improves their craft, eventually gets exposed, but it takes time because the attention gets people through the door, but it is truly quality that will keep them there. So maybe there's a balance that we need to find because the answer isn't stop making content. That's utterly ridiculous. That's how modern day marketing is done. The question is don't let the content become the reason and the only reason you create. Don't pick up a camera because you think it will perform well. Pick it up because you have something to say. Don't photograph something because you think it will get loads of likes. Photograph it because you can't ignore it. Don't chase visibility so hard that you disappear into your own creative process. Because the biggest irony of all of this is that the photographers who make the most interesting work are usually ones not desperately trying to make the interesting content. They are too busy being interesting in the world. Now, now we need to talk about something that's probably one of the most uncomfortable parts of this entire conversation because photography theatre isn't about creating content. It's not just about behind the scenes. It's not just about influencers. You know, it's also about something that photographers feel they have to do, and that's perform success. Because somewhere along the way, being successful stopped being something you built. It was something you had to prove. And social media has become basically a giant showroom. Everyone's shop windows open 24 hours a day. And the weird thing about shop windows, no one puts rubbish bins in front. Nobody puts the messy bits on display. No one puts a sign saying currently having a panic because I've only had 3 inquiries this month. No one posts spent 6 hours editing today and wondering if any of this is actually working. No one shares I have a quiet diary and I'm scared. Instead, we see polished versions, the highlights, the wins, the launches, awards, gear, luxury locations, client reels, and celebrations. And then we compare our entire behind the scenes to someone else's show reel. And that is incredibly dangerous, incredibly, because photographers are very good at seeing. Okay. It's what we do. We notice details. We notice light, composition. We notice other people's misses. And unfortunately, we also notice everything we think we're missing. And social media gives us an endless supply of that evidence. Someone's got a new camera. I'm behind. Someone gets invited to a brand launch. I'm behind. Someone announces they made 6 figures. I'm behind. Opens a studio. I'm behind. A new website. I'm behind. Fully booked till September, and you start questioning your entire career because someone you've never met appears to have their life together. You're comparing your reality to someone else's marketing, and marketing is designed to make people look good. And before anyone jumps in, because I know someone will, hey, Khandie, are you saying everyone is fake? No, absolutely not. And I do this, right? Photographers are genuinely thriving. Some of them are out there are genuinely thriving. They've built incredible businesses. There are people who've worked their arse off to deserve every success they've achieved. This isn't about accusing people of pretending. It's about understanding that social media is a curated window, a glossified look into their life. Even the most honest person is still choosing what to show. And this matters because photography has been weirdly tied to identity. People don't just say, I run a photography business. They feel like they have to prove I'm a successful photographer. And those are different things. You can be a brilliant photographer and have a quiet month. You can be talented and still struggle with marketing. You can be, experienced and still doubt yourself. You can be successful and still have bad days. But online, we create this strange expectation that professionals are supposed to look permanently confident, busy, winning, and honestly, it's bloody exhausting. And I think this is where gear culture comes into it as well, because cameras become a status symbol. Right. I love gear. I love camera gear. I love it. I'm a photographer and of course I love cameras. There is something genuinely exciting about new technology. A new camera actually improves your workflow. A new lens, it can inspire creativity. A new tool can open doors. But somewhere along the line, we've confused having professional equipment with being professional. Someone buys a £5,000 camera, suddenly they feel like they belong. Someone buys a £10,000 kit, someone feels like they are successful. They have a huge studio, suddenly they appear established. But none of those things automatically make you a photographer. Cameras don't create confidence, studios don't create creativity, and a lens does not create a vision. And the irony is, some of the most incredible photographs I ever created were often done with equipment that looks quite ordinary today because the magic was never inside the camera, it was the person using it. But social media loves objects. Social media likes stuff that's easy to sell, and objects are. A photograph is complicated. A photograph requires thought, emotion, context, experience. But a camera is shiny. It's new. And brands understand that because gear is easier to market than creativity. So I think this is where influencer culture and photography culture collide because brands need people who can create desire. They need people who can make people think, I need that, I want that, I need to buy that. And again, this is not evil, this is marketing. We have to understand the difference between this person inspiring me and this person makes me feel inadequate, so I buy something. Because insecurity is one of the biggest drivers in the photography industry. Think about it. How many messages are built around fear? You're missing out. Your camera's not enough. You're not good enough for this. Your website's not fast enough. Your branding's not good enough. Blah blah blah. Buy this, upgrade this, fix this, become better, become worthy. And the funny thing is, photographers then bring the same mindset into the business. They don't charge enough because they don't feel professional enough. They don't put themselves forward because they don't feel established enough. They don't show their work because they don't feel perfect enough. And they wait. They wait for a better camera. They wait for a better website portfolio, a version of themselves. And meanwhile, someone with half the skills but twice their confidence is getting those opportunities because confidence is visible, even when it's fake. And that creates another uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the person who looks like they know what they're doing gets treated like they know what they're doing because they show that they know what they're doing, even if they don't know what they're doing. People only see what you show them. But this is where authenticity matters, not fake vulnerability, not the social media version of I feel vulnerable because it gets engagement. That's another thing that bugs me. Real honesty, real conversations, real experiences, because actually people don't connect with perfection. They connect with humanity, which is why I did this podcast. I wanted you to feel like a friend was talking to you. I wanted it to be less, I know, elite. I wanted it to be a podcast that felt like you were chatting to mates. Some of the most powerful content I have ever created has not been showing me off. It has been me saying, "This is difficult. This went wrong. This is what I learned. Here's a mistake I made. Here's something no one told me." Because photographers don't need another person pretending they have all the answers. They need someone willing to tell the truth and be honest. So maybe that's the biggest contradiction of all. The internet rewards performance, but humans crave connection. The algorithm rewards perfection, but people trust honesty. The platform rewards confidence, but communities are built on vulnerability. So maybe the answer isn't to stop performing completely, because let's be honest, business needs presentation, branding needs intention, marketing needs storytelling. We all create a version of ourselves online. That's normal. The question is, are you creating a brand or are you creating a character? Because characters are exhausting to maintain. A brand can evolve. A character has to keep pretending. And I think photographers need to ask themselves, if I remove the followers, the likes, the brand deals, the validation, would I still pick up that camera? Would I still choose to be a photographer? Because if the answer is yes, brilliant, you're a photographer. The internet is a tool you're just using. But if the answer is no, maybe it's time to think whether you've fallen in with photography or you've fallen in love with being seen as a photographer. So where does that leave us? Because I don't want this episode to become one of those boring internet rants where everyone spends an hour complaining about the thing they're already using. Social media is terrible, posted on social media. Influencers are ruining everything, uploaded by an influencer. Content is killing creativity, said for a podcast episode designed to become content. Hello. The irony is obvious, and honestly, this is not a conversation interested in. It's not. This is not the conversation I'm interested in having, because content is not the enemy. Social media is not the enemy. Neither are influencers. The problem isn't that these things exist. The problem is we've forgotten who's in control. Social media has done some incredible things for photography. It has given photographers opportunities that simply didn't exist before. A photographer in a tiny town can now build a global audience. Someone with no industry connections can share their work. Someone who isn't was never going to get through the traditional gatekeepers can now create their own platform. It's powerful, it's brilliant. The old photography world has plenty of barriers, and social media has definitely knocked a lot of them down. But, and there is always a but, every tool comes with a cost. Cameras gave us the ability to capture moments, but it also gave us the ability to invade privacy. The internet gave us the ability to connect, but also gave us comparison and disconnect. Social media gave photographers visibility, but it also gave us the pressure that we must always be visible. And I think the challenge now is learning how to exist in a world without becoming consumed by it. Because you can absolutely be a photographer who creates content. You can teach, share, build an audience, have a YouTube channel, have a podcast, create reels, collaborate with brands, build an audience. You can be visible. None of those things make you less a photographer. So let's get that clear. There is a weird superiority complex sometimes where people act if you market yourself somehow you're not a proper artist, and I think that's utter trash and rubbish. A starving artist is not automatically more authentic. Being bad at business doesn't make you more creative. Photography is a business for many of us, myself included, and for businesses need customers. Customers need to find you. Find you requires visibility. Visibility requires communication. Communication requires content. It is not evil. It is not selling out. It is literally just modern business. The danger is when the marketing becomes bigger than the mission, though. When content becomes more important than the craft, when you spend more time talking about photography than actually photographing, when you become better at explaining how to get images than actually making them, when your camera is more of a prop than a tool, when your audience knows your personality better than they know your work. And maybe the question we all need to ask ourselves is, am I creating something because I have something to say, or am I creating because I'm scared no one is looking? Those two things can look identical from the outside. Both people are posting, both making videos, both sharing, but internally completely different. The first person creates with abundance. They have something they want to share. They're excited about it. They believe they will help somebody. While the second person is creating from fear, the fear of being forgotten or disappearing, fear that they haven't, that if they don't post for a week, they won't exist anymore in people's eyes. And it's that second place that is a horrible place to create from, because you'll never win. The algorithm is designed to keep moving. There is no finish line. There is no point where you'll find, say, I've made enough content. I'm visible enough. I'm safe. You can have 10,000 followers and want 50,000. You can have 50,000 and want 100,000. You can have 100,000 and worry no one cares. The goalpost will always move. So what do we do? How do we play a game without becoming the game? I think the first thing is remember why you picked up the camera. Not the business reason, not the marketing reason or the algorithm, the real reason. What made you think this is what I want to do? What made you think I want to remember this? What makes you think let's freeze these moments and tell these stories? Because the person, that photographer still exists in you. So go make photographs no one sees. Seriously, do it. Make something that will never get posted, something that will never become a reel, something that will never intend to go online to get likes, because you can still create when people aren't watching because you know you're creating for the right reason then. And weirdly, I think those photographs are often the ones that matter the most to us because they're not trying to impress anybody. They're not trying to perform, they're just being honest. And maybe that's what we need more of. Maybe not less content, but better content, not less sharing, more intentional sharing, not less personality, but more real you, not pretending we care about attention, but understanding why we want it. Because the truth is, attention isn't bad. Wanting people to see your work is not bad. Wanting recognition is not bad. We are human. We, of course, want our work appreciated. We want opportunities. We want success. But the question is whether the attention is serving the photography or the photography is serving the attention. And I think that's the line and one we need to protect. Because when I look back at some of my favorite photographs I've ever made, the ones I remember most, they're not the ones where I thought this is going to do so well on the gram. They're the ones I thought, bloody hell, I can't believe I did that. And that's what I felt walking around Norway. In the streets, the people, the incredible quiet, the random things that caught my eye, the images that weren't planned, the moments that weren't created for an audience in mind. It was just me enjoying it with my camera and a kind of a sort of childlike curiosity. I don't know how to say it. I got excited wandering around side streets and jumping on trams I hadn't been on and going to the end of the line and walking back. That's photography. It's not about the gear, the followers, the likes, or the invitations, or the free stuff, or the algorithm. It was the seeing, the noticing, the feeling, the story. Because the future of photography isn't about rejecting social media. Maybe it's about remembering that social media is supposed to be the window, not the entire house. Your audience are not the reason you create. Your audience is who you invited in after you create something meaningful. So here's my challenge. Okay. I don't have to give you homework, but we're going to have homework today. And I know it's a longer episode, and I hope you stayed with me. The next time you pick up a camera, don't think about the post or the caption or the engagement or whether you think someone else will love it. Just take the photograph, make the thing, tell the story, create something you want to create, and don't go, "Oh," okay? Because the world doesn't need more photographs performing photography. They need more photographers actually seeing. And if you're someone who loves content good, keep it up. I'm with you. Tell your story, share your journey, teach, inspire, build, but don't let the performance replace the passion. Don't become so busy proving you're a photographer that you forget you're actually one. Because at the end of the day, when the algorithm changes and the platforms disappear and the trends move on and the followers stop watching, what's left? Your photographs and hopefully the reason you made them. That's it for this episode of The Loud Lens. I would genuinely love to know what you think about this one because I think this conversation is something we need to be having as photographers. Are we creating more or are we performing more? Has content helped photography, changed it, improved the industry? Or has it made us a little bit too aware of ourselves? Let me know. And until next time, stop worrying about whether you're seen and start making sure you have something worth seeing. Take care. Bye bye.